What is good, everybody? Chasing Chains here, back with a new video. It's been a while. I think the last upload I had was like 3 weeks ago. So this week I'm going to try to pump out some content, make some videos for you guys. In today's video, we're going to be talking about overstable versus understable. This is pretty much for beginners only. If you've been playing a while, you probably already know what overstable versus understable means and what it is in disc golf and why it's important to know these terms. So this is more towards a video of people just trying to learn disc golf, learn the term so they can improve on the course, and just so you know what you're talking about a little bit. All right, so I'm going to be talking about right-hand backhand players and how the disc should fly for a right-hand backhanded player. So if you're lefty, just think of the opposite of what I tell you now. So for a right-handed backhand player, overstable is just the flight and how hard it wants to fade to the left. So a normal backhand throw for a righty is going to be straight and it's going to dump left. So overstable means it's going to try its hardest to dump left as soon as possible, is how I see it. Understable is just the opposite of that. So an understable disc wants to fade to the right, and depending on how understable it is, it could finish right, or it could kind of fade to the right and then come back just a tad bit. That's the main thing about over and understable discs. I'm going to throw a few to show you guys exactly what I mean, do a little flight tracker on them so you can see. First, I'm going to be throwing my Page Pierce nuke, and this thing for me is very overstable. Even when I throw it forehand, which I get a bit more power on, it's very overstable, and it really wants to fight out of that Anheuser angle. Let me throw this really quick. Next up, for understable, I have this Avenger SS. Hopefully the camera got that. I will do a little tracker. I held on to that one a little bit too long. But as you can see, it really wanted to fight to the left. There was really no chance of that disc turning over to the right at all. These are really good for skip shots, something that you want to put a lot of ante on and let it fight out of it, maybe a little S-turn where you really have to force it over. Next, I'm going to show you exactly what like an Avenger SS, which is very understable. So this disc, if I even put it on a little bit of hyzer or flat, it should just ride to the right, opposite of an overstable disc. Of course, I come back to YouTube on a day that it wants to rain. I'm trying to hurry and do this video. So hopefully in that flight, you can tell that that disc is riding a bit to the right. Starts out relatively straight, but then starts riding to the right. That's where the understable comes in. If I would have thrown that a tad bit harder, it would have never rode back out of that. It would have just stayed right. That's really what I wanted to show you guys. I'll throw another understable disc that kind of just rides to the right. That was actually a perfect example because I didn't want anything to come out of it, just so you could really see the flight, because I really didn't want to throw that Avenger SS. It kind of came out of it, but I wanted to show you guys something that just finished completely right. So there's pros and cons to both. Obviously, you're going to need a bag, you know, stable to overstable, neutral to understable disc in the bag. Eventually, you know, once you start playing enough, figuring it out. Overstable, I think I said before, is you can really force an Anheuser angle over, and they tend to fight out of it, which means you can throw kind of S lines where you're weaving through trees, and you can have something come back, which is obviously very beneficial. For understable, some holes are more designed for a backhand turnover shot. This is mainly so you can weave through something going to the right, but it has a nice soft finish. It doesn't skip a lot because it does fade out at the end, because the disc still wants to come back a little bit to the left to the natural flight. It just really depends on how hard you throw that understable disc. The very last thing I want to talk about is like, how do you know if it's an understable versus an overstable disc? Overstable discs tend to not have negative numbers in them. So that nuke does have like a -1, but that run is just very stable. Understable disc, the turn is going to be like a -3 and the fade's going to be like a 0, somewhere around there. So the turn is really kind of where it comes into play. If it's a negative number in that third slot, then that means it's going to be a bit more understable, especially if the fade is low. So if the fade's at 0, 1, something like that, that's an understable disc. The Avenger SS is like a -3, I believe, and it's very understable. That nuke, it's a bit of a higher speed disc as well, so that's going to play a little bit of a factor depending on how fast your arm speed is. If you pick up a Halo Tern, say, which is a -3 in that turn, but it's still a high-speed driver. So if you're just beginning out, that's still gonna act pretty overstable for you, and you won't see a lot of that turn. So I really do suggest, if you're a beginner, going with a slower speed, so say a 9 or an 8, getting something a bit understable with a negative number in there and not a lot of fade, and then throwing that a lot before going to a high-speed driver. This is going to help you with angles. You'll learn angles a lot better, especially if you start throwing harder. An understable disc will really show you what kind of whip you're getting on the disc. As if you're throwing an overstable disc and turning it over, you're really not learning too much there. Maybe it is going a little bit further if you have a crazy angle on it, but an understable disc is really going to help your angles, help you realize what you're doing actually in your form. So that's what I suggest. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up this video. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I'm going to try to get content up on this YouTube channel again weekly. That's what I was doing there for a while. I took a little bit of a break, but we're back. We're getting to it. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Follow ChasingChains_ on Instagram, where I post there daily, and we'll see you on the next one.